Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of our Hello Crypto podcast YouTube series. We're going to talk today, before I leave to permissionless New York, we're going to talk a bit about a lot of stuff that is moving in the markets. We're going to talk about what we're doing at the Hello front. We're going to discuss Iran and the impact on the markets. We're going to discuss the $16 billion passwords that apparently have been leaked. We're going to discuss quickly a little bit about hacking and what happened there with the Hive token. We're going to show you guys some really interesting charts. I took a look at what do I think is the outlook of BTC, and I want to show you a little bit what we're doing with Hello and Hello Club. Okay. So the first one is that I want to bring your attention to, guys, is we have just launched the all new Hello Crypto podcast, and amongst our, let's say, our broader marketing strategy within Hello Labs and, for example, Killer Whales, we said, hey, Killer Whales is this absolutely fantastic show that we're able to produce once a year, maybe twice a year, but the production is so big and so massive that we also want to make sure that we have daily, weekly, sometimes monthly news coming to you. So one of the initiatives that we're going to talk about today, and I wanted to show you this, guys, so head over to the website. It's the Hello Crypto podcast. It is an all-new podcast. We're trying to bring out an episode per day, but basically what we do is we look at the content that we're producing, whether this is something about Killer Whales Markets, one of these YouTube videos, some of the events that we go to, or some of the leaders that we interview. We will put them out in a podcast version. So there are some really interesting interviews with big leaders in the Web3 space scheduled for, but we also share, for example, we had a really interesting panel conversation during the ICP event in Zurich a week ago when we created this into a podcast, got a lot of listeners. So it's a great way for us to build a Hello brand. So what I wanted to show to you guys is, this is now available. It's also commercially available. And of course, there is a link to the Hello Club. But this is one of the things that I wanted to have you guys' attention on a little bit more. Then another thing that I want to run you guys through is this. This is the all new Hello Incubator. And since we started talking about this in our private communities, in the groups, people have been very stoked about this. And to be honest, we as a team are very excited about the prospect of this. And I'm very happy to say that over the last couple of weeks and months, we've been testing this and pitching this to a lot of different parties in the space, and the reactions is overwhelmingly positive. So if we're going to make some changes to the website this week, so we're going to start updating stuff. If you want to have a look at, what is the incubator all about, have a look at it. There will be a new page about this. And what we're going to do is we're going to offer Tier S or AAA projects, mentorship by the best, helping with the Hello community, engaging with the Hello Club, making use of all the different media solutions that we have built ourselves and acquired. More news about that in a couple of weeks. And we're going to make sure that these projects, we take them from a really good tech solution into a great media launch, connect them with the Killer Whales, our own media, and of course, the Hello Club. So in a couple of days, you will be finding this on the website as well. You'll find that information. We're also going to start sharing a little bit later in this episode, the first Incubatee. So this is only for the viewers of this channel. So let's make sure that you stay on top of this thing. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Hello and what we're doing here. Always good to have the Hello audience in the known, because in the end, that's our family. That's what we need to do. So, of course, we can't go into the news, crypto, besides looking into what is happening in Iran, what is happening between Israel and Iran. And I woke up this morning, being in Europe for a couple of weeks, seeing that in the end, President Trump pulled the trigger and he decided to bomb some of the Iranian nuclear sites. So it's definitely going to be interesting. We had a look. The first thing I did is I basically checked Bitcoin, and I was like, okay, this 100K for me is like a very, very clear indicator of, are we still bullish or are we looking to do some downside? It was still at 102, dipped to 101, I believe. And okay, by the time that we're talking about this, I see $350 million being minted. But nevertheless, so the news is basically Trump bombarded, and he gave away this speech.
Short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Okay, well, so you get an idea what has happened. They basically decided to move ahead. The question is, how is Iran gonna respond to this? What actually is true? Because Iran is, of course, putting up propaganda that was like, just minorly damaged. So let's see what it's gonna do. Bitcoin is holding strong. I'm gonna show that in the chart later on. I really take a deep look into like oil because if oil is gonna, go up, then we'll probably see inflation go up, and that would potentially be an end of the cycle. God could mean an end of the cycle. So yeah, for me, this is really important that oil and BTC stay in line. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. What else happened this week? So let's see what this is. Okay, another ad. So it's really interesting to see that there is like a lot of like news on the 16 billion passwords that have been leaked. Really interesting narratives to cover is that there are also some naysayers in this area where they are basically saying, well, people say that these, big companies, Facebook, Google, Apple, have been hacked, but a lot of people are like, hey, if these big companies are being hacked, why aren't they destroyed on media? And you could still then, think a little bit like, yeah, American companies, tech companies, they won't attack them publicly. But in the US, that could be some nuance there. It would definitely still, got into the news. But Europe would have absolutely destroyed these companies because they're very, very sensitive on personal security and, all of that stuff. So there are some naysayers now saying basically, hey guys, basically, what these hackers did is, they took like a lot of different passwords that have been leaked before and slapped a new stick on it. So, well, in the end, it doesn't matter what is true, and what in the end is really important is make sure that everything that you have and hold is secure, right? So change your passwords, make sure that you do an update. Also, simple things like make sure that you do not store your private keys on a Google Drive or in I don't know, an Apple Notes or whatever, right? Make sure that it is stored somewhere where nobody can find it and it's super secure. You shouldn't be keeping a digital copy of your seed phrase or your passwords or whatever. Make sure that you have these somewhere written down physically on a place that is unaccustomed to anybody that, would be looking for that potentially. Because not your keys, not your crypto, right, guys? If somebody has your private key or access to your wallet, they can do whatever they want with it. So, okay, so yeah, it's an interesting conversation on X as well. I think we just covered this a little bit more. Then I wanted to quickly go a little bit to the Hacken bridge that was hacked. So Hacken is our security partner, was for Killer Whales. We stick with them in good times and a little bit less good times. So I believe that I spoke to Dima and I spoke to the team. They got hacked yesterday for about 900 million high tokens, which is that tokens that they use for, DAO votings and some discounts on like services that they have, etc., etc. It's just a small hack. It was worth like $250,000, but still, nevertheless, right? It is a hack. So, and it is definitely one of the biggest supplier. What I've seen from these guys, like absolutely owning it, that is the most important thing. And the second thing is that they like within like 2 or 3 hours after it happened and they got like notifications, they already found the problem and fixed it. And they're now looking into like next steps. So this is something like a story that we'll be developing. And let's have a look at, what is going on here. Um, what I want to do next, guys, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we're going to do with Hello, but I want to dive into an analysis that I did about 2 days ago about Bitcoin. And just being honest, this is analysis that I did based on the work of a couple of other analysts, but I started looking into it because I thought the strategy made a lot of sense. And just to run you guys through, I think we all understand that if Bitcoin goes up or down, that means that the whole altcoin market is going to go up and down with it. And a lot of us have big bags in altcoins. Whether you're an Hello holder, you're an altcoin, or whether you're even an Ethereum holder, it's an altcoin, right? So, and whenever we all know, whenever Bitcoin sneezes, the rest catches a cold, right? So if Bitcoin goes up, we need to be aware of that because money will flow into altcoins. If Bitcoin goes down, altcoins have the potential to even go down harder. So, based on the analysis that was made, I had a look at it, and basically what the analysts were doing, and this is probably the best view, is where you see that they actually calculate, okay, when is it summer, when is it autumn, when is it winter, when is it spring, and when it is summer. And you difficultly always see, and that was the interesting to me. Spring, there's always this consolidation period. If you look at May 15, if you look at like May 19, and basically also still like April, May 2023. This is all this always this consolidation period after the winter has took full swing. And it's also interesting to see that, for example, the halvings, they are always in the summer, right? So the halvings are typically people say, well, the market bottoms 12 to 18 months before the halving, and that's when it starts going up in anticipation of the halving. So for me, this kind of makes sense. And the one of the key takeaways for me was that if you look at like when the autumn typically ends. Let me see if I have that information here. Yeah, when autumn typically ends, that is typically about 7 months before we have a reset. And I didn't show this here, but it's down here as well. So there are these liquidity cycles, right? So this is the liquidity cycle that has this 4-year cycle. It's good to explain this, by the way. You have these liquidity cycles, and what happens there is that each and every time the liquidity cycle goes up, we go into spring, we get into summer, we go into autumn, and we go into winter. You have to reset. And these line up pretty perfectly with a lot of the moments where the market was at an all-time low. And when liquidity was high, of course, the market was high, right? So, and what you see now is that we're in the same period. And what they did is basically they calculated, um, for example, when are the highs? So December, when is another high? Okay, November 2021. There was another high in April 2021. But what they're basically doing is basically they're marking that high as basically a moment in time in a liquidity cycle. And if you then start looking at when that high was and you start making a trend pattern, they're saying, well, that high should actually be at the end of October. That's completely different than what it seems to be telling us right now, right? Because if you would say, autumn is like 7 months, then we are 7 months into that period, right? And we should be, looking at like, okay, it's 100K. And again, that's why I said, if we keep 100 above 100K, that is really bullish. So, based on that, they say, well, autumn, which is actually typically always the period where it still goes up, it goes up here, it goes up here, it goes up here. And you can say, well, okay, 2021 wasn't really like an up, but it still got higher, right? So it's, and what they basically then said is like, even if, and this is my expected outcome, it's still my expected outcome. So I'm not going to change too much on that right now, is that the autumn is now, and we should be going towards the cycle top. Well, I think, you know, when I drafted this 2 or 3 days ago, the Iranian Israel stuff wasn't going on that crazy. But my idea that back then was like, I am still like the 140, 150, 160K type of top of the cycle guy. This has been my thesis all along. My thesis has been, okay, guys, let's get to like 115, 120K by May, June. Still a little bit of time left there. We didn't get there, but nevertheless. And then we go through the summer, we stick above to 100K, and then October, November, we might go to 140, 150, 160K. So this was my expected. Now, there are two convergences there because, this liquidity cycle top, etc., etc. That could also be a bearish one, and that is basically the war. scenario where we go into war, oil prices go up, inflation goes up, risk assets go down. So that would be not my favorite one. And the reason why it all goes all the way down to 30K, which a lot of people would be like, hey, no, this is never going to happen again. This would be the worst of the worst scenario, right? So it's extremely bearish. If you look at my expected, I'm like, okay, we probably need to go to the top. And then what kind of often happens is that the market cycle low, you can see it here, market cycle low is at like, the top of the bull cycle before. And you can do the same thing here. Let me see where we are. So the market cycle low is a little bit higher than the bull market top. And here the divergence is big, a little bit smaller, and then it's like, it's like on the top. So my thesis is like, okay, we went from a big difference to a smaller difference to medium. So potentially if that pattern, continues, then we go a little bit below the previous microcycle top. And that would mean that if we would hit like 160, still go 70, 80% down, like all the other cycles, we could go to 40, 41. Probably, it's a little bit low, but let's see what happens. Then on the bearish end, that's where, it stops now. And then we take in like all the bearish elements. There's a war, there is no liquidity coming in from ETFs, et cetera, and we need to calculate the 70% drop in. That's a 30K Bitcoin. I have like a 99.9% certainty that this is not going to happen because there is too much money flowing in, too many ETFs, too many people are adopting this, too many, governmental funds are adopting this. So this is a very unlikely. What I did find interesting is the bullish one. And that would be where we actually get this extension of the autumn. We get a blow off the top. To be honest, I think this is a little bit too much. Don't think that we're going to hit 240K this cycle, but this would be in the books if you compare all the other cycle tops and the averages. And then you would need to calculate in like the 60, 70% drop, and it would drop to like 65K, which kind of makes sense and is typical for the same as the last cycle. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. My true belief is what I think that is going to happen is that we're gonna probably like top up if everything goes well around 160, 170, 180. And the other reason why I have is that there are like a lot of like known long-term indicators, like let me close this one here because this is the Bitcoin rainbow wave, right? It's an indicator, and you can see that this wave has been pretty spot on, right? So it goes into yellow, drops back, goes into red, and drops back in the winter, in the bear. It goes up to yellow, goes a little bit down, goes up to red, drops down to the blue ones. Goes up to yellow, goes back, drops back to the blues. And now it goes to the yellow, drops back. And now we're in the period where you should actually see that pickup, into this cycle. Still thinking about, okay, the liquidity cycle seems to be ending there. So what is going to happen then? So if we zoom in a little bit, what you then would see, and if I would paint in my expected one, that's where I say, okay, 160K would very well be possible. Potentially we do get that extension. Potentially that means that this one moves here until the end of the cycle, the liquidity cycle, and that's when we will start working towards the next halving. So this is what I'm expecting. Again, this might be too bearish. Maybe it's around 60K. I would live with all of that. But that is a little bit my idea right now, and this is based on this one SOL indicator. So yeah, I think it's a lot of interesting stuff. I do think that like macro environments like Iran, Israel are a big impact. But for the rest, we see liquidity go up. We see activities go up. Rate cuts weren't announced, but that would have been like a big bonus. So let's see what is going to happen in the next couple of months and weeks, more specifically through the summer. Typically, this summer is a little bit choppy. But up until now, I'm like, guys, Bitcoin is like staying on top of 100K. This, it feels like the absolute bare minimum right now. Whereas before we kind of got above it and then dropped back and got above it and dropped back. And now at this point where I'm like, we're having a war, we're having two, three wars, we're having things being bombarded. We have we have a lot of discussions around, government spending and NATO regulations and all of that stuff. So it's actually really bullish. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Gonna be interesting to hear what you guys think. Make sure that you drop a comment. Then we're gonna close it off, guys, with a couple of smaller things that I really think is interesting, especially if you like Hello and what we're doing. So we'll be going to permissionless this week. I'm actually leaving tonight, and we're gonna go to New York, and we're gonna go to the event. We have been invited by some of the partners, big sponsors. You might recognize some of them. And we'll be definitely doing some really interesting announcements with people that are on this list. And these are things that you're not expecting. So we have been building a lot of strategic strategic partnerships with different parties. And they roll into the incubator, they roll into our production capability, they roll into our token utility, they come into working together on the club, and actually everything involves the club, right? So the club is definitely going to be key and center to everything that we do. Let me see. And here's the page. There is still this invite referral campaign going on, guys. So this is definitely the moment in time where you need to get in. Basically, whenever you register, you sign up, you complete your profile, and you start bringing in people, you're getting more referrals and more rewards. We'll reveal even more about that in weeks to come, and you'll be with the first that are able to come into the Hello Club. And the Hello Club is everything about free token airdrops. You can do quest things. Projects can come in and do quest things. We'll allow you to trade tokens. Any transaction within the ecosystem will burn some Hello. There is a Hello Launchpad. You can invest with the killer whales. So we're really taking the next step in having a killer whales flagship product into token economy, making sure that we're working with a lot of projects and a lot of these partners that are here to actually fuel that ecosystem and bring added value to a lot of the partners that we're working with. Okay, so and then another thing that I want to announce to you guys is that we are also ramping up collaborations with ICP. So one of the things that we're going to do together with ICP is be a media partner of the World Computer Hacker League. That basically means that will be front and center on this 3-month long event. It's basically Hacker League, a global Hacker League. We'll be co-organizing it on the media end. And the whole idea is that we give young developers a great chance. We are going to look into, what are the best of the best. And we're going to take these and give them access to the Killer Whales Season 3 show, but we're also going to give them access to the incubator. The incubator again, it's all about making sure that we get the best of the best projects into the incubator. We give them the best of the best media approach and go-to-market strategy. And we, as a Hello Club, can benefit from that by supporting these projects, buying in early, or maybe even trading the token, earning fees on trading swaps and stuff like that. So we're really going to enable the Hello community to be front and center on any and all of these opportunities. So keep an eye out of this. There will be an announcement being made around this as well. So this is separate from the permissionless announcements. So it's going to be very interesting. Also, if you are a builder and you're like, hey, I have this great idea. I think ICP is a great place to work with and team to collaborate on. Make sure that you register here because it's going to be very interesting. They're also going to give away a lot of grants and different perks for builders that build great products. And of course, they just released that caffeine product, which is absolutely insane. I covered that in another video. I'm really, really stoked about that one. Okay, so we have been covering a lot of stuff, guys. So we talked about Hello Podcast. We talked about the incubator that's going to start. We discussed a little bit about the club. We talked about Israel, Iran. We talked about the 16 billion passwords that have been hacked. We talked about hacking. We gave you guys a little bit of an insight how we think that the cycle of BTC is going to play out, and also, give an answer to the question when altcoin season. What I wanted to do now in this latter part of the video is to actually give you guys an insight about how we're taking it forward with the club. So there are 3 things that you need to understand. Why the club? So the club has been built to enable our community to benefit from the work and the media and the power that we have. Because when we started building Killer Whales, a lot of projects came to us saying, hey, can we be on the show? And we said, well, we can only bring on 15, but ideally we want to bring in 100, right? But we want to bring on the right projects. And the other thing that happened was that a lot of like L1 ecosystem said, hey, Sander, Paul, can we work with you guys? Can we do promotions, et cetera, et cetera? And then the third thing that happened was basically a lot of KOLs came to us and said, hey, we want to be on the show. We think we can add some value, make it more entertaining, et cetera, et cetera. And we truly believe that they can. So what did we do? We said, okay, let's build this year-round media company. Hello Crypto, Killer Whales Markets, a couple of unannounced companies that we acquired and are broadcasting for us already, all adding to the token economy right away. And the second thing that we did is, let's build a Hello Club where not only our community can, perform tasks, get rewarded, get airdrops, basically be a KOL like Kaido, Cookie 3, but kind of doing the same, only then with bigger KOLs and really interesting projects. So the club is this KOL ambassador program that we've been running up in the background. Nash has been working on that very hard. By now, we've signed up about 40 different KOLs that start tweeting and working, creating content around the projects that we incubate. You might have seen this with the blog art Fugio launch that we did the other week. So what is going to happen is that we're going to incubate these projects which we think are really cool, but a little bit too, I don't know, too early maybe even for the show. We're going to use all the ambassadors to create the content. We're going to create the content ourselves, and then we're going to give the club members rewards for basically pushing that content out and making sure that the projects in the incubator actually grow a fan base. They quite often already have because the level of projects that are coming into the club are absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane to see the quality of projects coming into the club and working with us on the incubation program. And I'm gonna soft announce you guys, and this is like before any PR release goes out, but this is for the people that are watching this video, that are in the community and have, kept faith. This is the moment in time where we're gonna announce the first one. And again, this is the first one of many that we've signed up. And in the coming days and weeks, we're gonna like announce more how it actually works and what you can do. We've been testing the club, so a lot of people are already there. But here we go. So the first one that we're very proud to be able to sign on is OpenXAI. OpenXAI, they've featured themselves as an open permissionless AI ecosystem. Well, what does that mean, right? So they have a great founding team. This is the founding team that in the early days helped set up the business angle for Sonic. So the founder was the director of this segment within Sonic and has been building a couple of different projects, but this is the one that he's been working on the last 2 years. Great traction, great funding, great backing, but also a lot of people that are supporting this, and we are really bullish about this one. So what we decided to do is we decided to offer them a place on the incubator, and what they do is they basically say, well, you have all these like tools and solutions, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, et cetera, but they're all powered by corporations. And why do not create a system where people can deploy their own tech stack, their own ChatGPT, their own DeepSeek, train it, and then make sure that business processes run a lot smoother. So to give you an example, if somebody works within Nike and it's like a sales guy and he's looking for the latest and greatest information on a new shoe that is being presented, where is he going to find it? These corporate structures build all this like heavy infrastructure like Slack and then ERP systems and Accenture and all of that stuff. What if they just had their own ChatGPT and they could say, hey, give me the latest brochure on the Nike shoe XYZ? And marketing works in the system as well, training the model, saying, hey, whenever somebody searches for this, make sure that they give you this is the latest and greatest brochure. So you can imagine how powerful this can be and how big the market can be. So you can, and it's really interesting. So what they do is they allow you to pick the different models, to put it on the infrastructure that you think that works. They also run their own nodes, which is very powerful and very interesting. And then they even have different monetization models. So you can do a model ownership, so you can just sell the model or the solution that you're creating. You can rent it or resell, or you can even say, well, you're just going to get a subscription. So just imagine all the people that are building these AI models, or you're running it as a side gig, or even advising the bigger companies. It's going to be very interesting to see how this grows. And we'll give you more demos about what this is and how it actually works. I've been talking to the team for about 4 months now. It's absolutely insane what they're doing. I'm really bullish about this, and I'm very happy and stoked to be able to sign OpenXAI as one of the first bigger incubations that we did. We've done more. We've done trials with other projects that have done tremendously well. Some of them we'll reveal in the future because there are also some airdrops still coming to the community. But we're definitely gonna go all in onto OpenXAI. So this is one, guys. I will tell you there are more coming, even more mind-blowing. We have a really good feel and a really good network of projects coming in, but this is definitely one that I wanted to share with you guys. Okay, so final call to action. Make sure you go to the Hello Club. It's on the website. You can just still register. Make sure you buy some Hello because you need it to get into the club and really benefit from everything. You can use it without Hello, but if you really want to benefit, for example, from these airdrops, from access to the launch pads, from investing with the whales, from working with the prediction markets and doing a lot of arbitrage solutions, or maybe even trading tokens on the Hello Trade and Hello Dex solutions, you need to hold Hello tokens. So guys, go there, register now, make sure that you bring in all your friends, and we're gonna make it really something to remember. That's it for me, guys. Again, this is a little bit ad hoc. I just wanted to share the latest and greatest information with you, with the stuff that we've been working on, the stuff that I see happening in the market, what I think that Bitcoin is going to do, because the Bitcoin is the leading and God indicator of what the rest of the altcoin market is going to do. But we within Hello are going to create our own little bull market. And I thank you guys for being here. Gonna speak to you guys soon. We're going to drop some videos from New York, and keep an eye out for the announcements that we're putting out there. Cheers. Have a great weekend. Bye.